And we'll be back with more here on Rock 104. Oh, hey, how are you doing? It is Wednesday once again, and that means it's time once again for Weird Wednesday here on rock104.ca. Today we're going to look at, we're going to look at the skies above us. That's what we're going to do. According to a recent article, 911 dispatchers have been fielding a rising amount of calls, not for medical or law enforcement emergencies, but for sightings of UFOs. The increase is actually seen most prominently here in Alberta. Data from last year has indicated that nearly 900,000 911 calls, out of those, a surprising amount have been about unidentified flying objects. Now, there could be a pretty simple explanation for the increase. People have had a lot of time during the pandemic to burn off watching the skies. And of course, if you haven't been watching for quite a while, you might not exactly know what it is you're looking at. A lot of those things people can see from the ground with the naked eye are run-of-the-mill satellites. At the moment, there are somewhere in the neighborhood of 2,800 satellites currently orbiting the Earth. Those range from ordinary communication satellites for telephone or television broadcasts, all the way to the more I could tell you but I'd have to kill you variety of top-secret government satellites that we're not really supposed to know anything about. Not to mention the dead satellites that their original owners have no real way of retrieving, and they're just floating up there with dead battery packs, completely obsolete. If you thought your average city park looked like pretty bad after a long weekend and looked more like a garbage dump than a park, imagine all of that garbage zipping over our heads at around 11,000 kilometers per hour. There's so much junk floating around the orbit in Earth that there are sophisticated programs currently running constantly that are keeping track of all of the orbital paths of all of the garbage flying around. Without a system to track it all, launching anything new would be like you having to get to work by crossing 7 18-lane highways, constantly moving traffic, stacked up on top of each other. So imagine that. And of course, imagine doing that blindfolded. For those that have not taken the time out of their busy lives to observe the skies in the last 10 years, some of them would have noticed a perfectly aligned string of lights in the sky occasionally coasting through. This is not really cause for alarm. Elon Musk's SpaceX has a satellite system known as Starlink, and that is a linked series of satellites that will reflect sunlight from orbit, just as any other orbiting object would do if it was man-made. Also, there is the International Space Station, which can be seen with the naked eye as a ball of light zipping across the sky. There are also other countries that have space projects in orbit, some of that we don't even really know about. For example, this past week, the Chinese government launched a rocket into space to add to their current space station project of their own. Of course, add to that the naturally occurring meteorites. There are about 38 meteor showers that happen at different times of the year annually. And you can see those, a lot of them anyways, with the naked eye from the ground as streaks of light in the sky. And then, of course, there's the occasional ball of ice or rock that makes its way to our atmosphere from wherever they come from, whether it's deep space, other galaxies, or just debris from our own solar system's Kuiper Belt, the band of leftover rock from the formation of the planets from billions of years ago that accompanies the rest of our planets around the sun in a constant orbit. Of course, there are also the legitimate unidentified flying object sightings. In fact, there were a total of 1,243 unidentified flying object sightings last year. What were they, you ask? Well, that answer lay in the name itself. They are unidentified, so we don't really know what those flying objects were. They could have been just some of our own space garbage falling back to Earth. It could have been an untracked meteor. There is a lot of sky to cover and not enough trained eyes to cover it all, so things get missed all the time. Or it could have actually been an ET or an ALF. Let's just hope that they're not predators or worse, should we ever have a close encounter of our own. Still, it's always fun to watch the night sky. With no real end in sight for the pandemic, there will continue to be people with nothing better to do but to look up for a couple of hours and occasionally wonder, hey, did you see that? What the heck was it? We don't know. Keep your eyes on the skies, kids, and enjoy the sights. Anyways, that's been another Weird Wednesday for this Wednesday here on Rock 104. Join us next week again on Wednesday for another edition of Weird Wednesday. Until then, have a great week.